Hey everyone. With Splatoon 2 on the horizon, I wanted to make this video recapping the Splatoon 1 competitive scene, what we did well, some missteps in my eyes, and what we can anticipate in Splatoon 2, and how we as a community can help it succeed. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me, I go by Mullen in game, Giant Panther on Twitch, or Ultramis on Reddit. And I'm a former competitive StarCraft 2 player, former Halo competitive player, and though a free agent at the moment, I've been a competitive Splatoon player and commentator since the very first tournament, up until, basically just a month ago. So I'm just going to basically break this down by, successes, criticisms, and just some thoughts leading into the release of Splatoon 2. We'll start with the good successes. So I'm a bit notorious for being very vocal in my complaints about the game and about Splatoon, but I really do want to emphasize that we've come really far since release, and we're in a really good position leading into the sequel. So our competitive community has persisted through the entire life of the game. The production values for our majors has improved with each tournament. We've had more interplay and communication between the Western and Japanese scenes. We've got more commercial interest, like both first party with Nintendo and third party, with the E3 tournaments and playing Splatoon 2 for the winners of those tournaments at E3. And therefore, we've had more exposure and better prize pools now than when we first started playing competitive Splatoon. So a lot of the legwork is already done, and there shouldn't be any reason to rehash discussions and arguments that have already been resolved once Splatoon 2 is out. What I'm specifically referring to are how we handle map pools, disconnects, and tournament structures. So having the Halo-style map and mode set ahead of time has been by far the superior option in comparison to Smash-style map and mode banning. It just takes too long, and there's too much, time between the games actually starting and the in-between match duration. And then having like one disconnect per team per set, depending on how long the game has lasted and how far the objective has been pushed, is a reasonable and, again, time-sensitive method for keeping tournaments running smoothly. And also, as far as series goes, we've had a couple tournaments that have had best of 3 grand finals, and it's rather anticlimactic because the games can be so short with knockouts, and you have all of this build up throughout the tournament to have a disappointing grand final, and it's not good for players or spectators. So definitely having at least a best of 5 grand finals is what we want. And if you're going to have double elimination, then you want to have differing best of series between your upper and your lower bracket, so that the lower bracket doesn't drag on, because that's also been a problem. As far as Swiss tournaments go, online they really just don't work. They take way too long for each round to end. There's almost always some issue with teams quitting because they weren't making the top cut, and none of the Swiss tournaments have been a very enjoyable experience and have had heavy criticism, which is why they're not the standard as of right now. Let's see here. Similarly, having all maps and modes is better than having one map and mode for either the entire tournament or having one mode for each round. Like, the teams that are the best should be able to win on a wide variety of maps and modes, and that variety makes it more engaging as a player, spectator, and commentator. So all in all, since we started, we've come a long way from the very first tournaments, and definitely things could be a lot worse. So we've done really good, all things considered. So now I'm going to move on to criticisms, and I'm going to be focusing on the scene here and not the game per se. So keep that in mind with my comments. The largest ones to me was the volatility and immaturity of team captains and managers and tournament organizers, and the oversaturation of tournaments and inadequate allocation of resources. Everything should be done to serve a purpose. What I'm saying is that you should always have a goal in mind for any effort you are putting into the scene. If someone is investing money, they're going to expect a return on that investment. They need to see a return on their investment for it to be sustainable, or for them to want to continue putting money into the scene. So when money isn't involved, which is the vast majority of the teams and tournaments that have happened in Splatoon 1, you need to allocate your effort as if your effort was your money. So if you were going to spend X amount of effort running 2 tournaments that were not so great, you should instead focus on 1 tournament with the same amount of effort, and not only make your 1 tournament higher quality, but focus on getting more advertisement so that you have better viewership and exposure. So in doing so, we can have solid, consistent viewership, and that's going to make the scene a lot more attractive to advertisers and investors. The same can be said for teams. Repeated disbanding, reforming, renaming makes it really difficult for spectators to follow. It makes it hard on us as commentators to know the rosters and to talk about the matchups between rounds. And all that volatility looks really bad from the perspective of advertisers and investors. And especially because teams are constantly changing, they're not able to adequately brand themselves, build up a viewer base, and then leverage that viewer base, into like advertisement or into a proposition for some investors or sponsors. So what I'm trying to get everyone to focus on is just making the scene more engaging, approachable, and really high quality. And that's going to go a long way into helping our competitive scene prosper. So just some thoughts on the future. And Splatoon 2 is very likely to sell significantly more copies than Splat 1, just because the Switch is much more successful. Splatoon itself was successful on a console that didn't sell as many units. So Splatoon 2 is looking to have significantly larger numbers of players. And because it's a sequel and we already have established, competitive modes and everything, we should anticipate a large influx of players to the competitive scene. So bearing that in mind, it's really important for new players that we point them in the right direction for resources to both get private matches and scrimmages going, to have access to all of the guides and VODs of high quality, really good competitive players. And we just need to be as inclusive as possible. So this is really hurt by the fragmentation of the entire community over hundreds of discords. So that's why there's a huge emphasis that we absolutely have to be approachable and that we have to be inclusive if we want our scene to survive and to have, to grow. So with that, with the influx of players, we're basically, all of us currently involved in the scene are, big fish in a small pond. We haven't really had the participation in the player base to kind of usurp our positions in the scene, and I want people to realize that they may not be as competitive, or they may not have the same clout or influence that they have in Splatoon 2 that they have in Splatoon 1. And that's fine. And it's really important that if that does happen, that you're not antagonistic, because it's only going to hurt everyone involved. So, in conclusion, what I'm really encouraging is for people to be more mindful of the scene and each other, and not just go full bore with everything and burn players and tournament organizers out. So we can start Splatoon 2 on the right foot, and it'll make the scene altogether more enjoyable for everyone involved. And just being considerate of the players and players' time, and being considerate of new players coming into the scene, not being just elitist jerks, and not being exclusive and trying to prevent people from participating. That's what we absolutely have to focus on with Splatoon 2. So there's plenty more I could ramble on about, but I really do want to just cut this short. As always, you can find more content, on anywhere basically. You can go on the subreddit, you can go on Squidboards, for the people that still go there, or various other players. Just go to Twitch, search for Splatoon. There's always good players streaming, and right now most of the players are really approachable, and they're going to answer any questions that you have. And I just really want to emphasize that we keep that up for Splatoon 2, so that we're able to get more people involved. Because the more people that we have involved and the more viewership we have, that's what's going to make our scene sustainable, and that's what's going to make it better and more legitimate moving forward. But I think I've said enough on the topic as of right now. I'll go ahead and cut it out right here. Until next time, guys, mulling out.